Oh man, boys, do I got a good conversation for you guys today. I think this is so important for not only people to understand, but instructors in the jiu-jitsu community as well. Not only students, but also instructors. The chemicals of the brain. It's very important to understand that and to understand what goes through people's minds psychologically when they hit the blue belt blues, and when they and why they quit, and what tends to make them quit, and all that kind of stuff. So first, let's talk what is the blue belt blues. The blue belt blues is a thing that people have called it. It's pretty much a time where you feel very unmotivated, and you don't really feel like training anymore, and it tends to happen at the blue belt. As a brown belt, I've been training 10 years. As a brown belt, I've hit the blue belt blues at literally every single belt level, except white belt, but every single belt level. I love white belt. White belt was amazing. It's so much fun. You're just getting your butt kicked. Everything is so much fun. But here's the thing. Why do people hit the blue belt blues? What's the reason for it? So what tends to happen is this. As people first let's understand the chemicals of the brain real quick, and then we'll get into kind of what's going on. So there's two main chemicals I want you guys to pay attention. Really three. There's three main chemicals that we're going to talk about today. Endorphins, dopamine, cortisol. There's three things. Cortisol, stress hormone. It's a hormone you get when things don't go your way. Hormone that you're being pumped with when you're in school, or when a kid's in school, they're being pumped with cortisol all day. What you're getting when you're at work, it's just nonstop, just cortisol. It's a stress hormone. It's bad for you. You don't want it. Endorphins. Endorphins lighten up your mood. They put you in a better mood. You got a lot of other benefits from it. You pretty much get them from working out. That's how you're going to get them in jiu-jitsu, by working out. Dopamine. Dopamine is an addictive chemical. It's very important to understand dopamine, because dopamine is the same chemical you get when you go play the slots at the casino. I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I'm going to win. Same thing when somebody buys in all these new games online. You buy like a pack. It's like, oh, you get a skin pack. You don't know what skins are going to be on these video games. Skin pack. Three packs come up. It's all random. Maybe I'll get a rare one. Maybe I'll get a rare one. Maybe I'll get a rare one. Crap, I didn't get a rare one. I'm going to try it again. Dopamine. Now, how does all this come into jiu-jitsu? Well, when you first start jiu-jitsu, you're pumped immediately with endorphins, because you're usually out of shape. You're having a good workout. I mean, you're kind of always getting endorphins in jiu-jitsu, but you're working out. You're having fun. It's a different type of workout, so it's like more endorphins. It's not repetitive. You're like, man, this is awesome. I love this. This is so much better than running on the treadmill. You're learning new things. Dopamine. Boom. It's amazing. When you're a new student, you aren't expecting much. So you getting out, you not getting tapped for 5 minutes is a win. Boom, dopamine. You getting out of the mount. Boom, dopamine. You're like, dude, this is awesome. I want to come back tomorrow. I love this. Boom, dopamine, right? So it makes you all addicted. That's at the white belt level. And as time goes on, you start hitting those elbow escapes. And guess what? Your elbow escapes. You're not getting as much dopamine pump. Why? Because you do it all the time. You elbow escape everybody. It doesn't really mean too much to you anymore. So you get the dopamine pumps from the submissions. Boom, you hit your first Americana. Dopamine. Boom, you take the back of the blue belt. Dopamine. You're loving it. You're killing the game. You're loving it. Oh man, you're so excited. You got dopamine all over the place. Problem is that the longer you train, the less dopamine hits you as you just train the same. The less dopamine is going to hit you, because look, as a brown belt, me elbow escaping a black belt's mount, I'm not going to get hit with dopamine when I do that. I'm just not going to. I'm a brown belt. I'm going to elbow escape his mount. I may get a hit of dopamine if he compliments me after I submit him. That's going to be a hit of dopamine. I'll get a hit of dopamine if I score a takedown on him. That's going to be some addictive thing. I'll get a hit of dopamine if there's somebody around that's like, oh my God, Steven, you roll so well. Watching you is magical. I'm gonna get a hit of dopamine. If somebody came to me and said, "Jiu-jitsu, your jiu-jitsu sucks," I'm gonna get a hit of cortisol. Right? It makes sense how the chemicals work. Now, people quit in jiu-jitsu in two main areas. Sure, there's other areas, but there's two high percentage places where people tend to quit. Where are they? The first 3 months. The first 3 months, somebody quits jiu-jitsu, or people usually quit jiu-jitsu. Why? Because it's too hard. It's a culture shock. It's too hard. It's very difficult for them. They look at how much there is to learn, and they're like, there's no way I can learn this. There's no way. This is absolutely too insane. I'm losing nonstop. I'm just losing nonstop. So what's happening is they're getting hit with cortisol, way more cortisol. Second area, blue belt. Why? Why do they get hit at blue belt in the beginning of blue belt with cortisol, middle of blue belt, or I'm sorry, not cortisol, but, well, it is cortisol, but why do they get hit in the beginning and the middle with the blue belt blues, but they don't at 3-stripe white belt? Why is that? At the 3-stripe white belt, you have a giant sense of motivation because you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're like, I'm almost there at the blue belt, dude. I got it. I gotta earn it. I gotta earn it. When your 1 year is up for subscription, you're like, all right, or your membership, your 1 year is up at your gym. You're like, yeah, re-up, dude. I gotta get this blue belt. I gotta get this blue belt. Boom, you get the blue belt. Hit with dopamine. You're excited. You come back in the gym. You're all pumped up. Cortisol's at an all-time low. Endorphins, dopamine, all-time high. You're just high on fumes. You're so excited. Get to class. You get tapped out by the 4-stripe white belt still. The 3-stripe white belt. The athletic wrestler that comes in, he still taps you out. You're a blue belt. Guess what you get hit? Cortisol. Boom. I'm a blue belt. I'm getting tapped out by this white belt. Cortisol. You take a break. You take a 2-3 month break because of an injury or something. You're getting hit with cortisol anytime you think about jiu-jitsu. Why? Man, if I go back, I'm not going to be the same. I'm going to have to play catch up. Everybody's going to think bad about me because I'm a blue belt, but I'm getting beat up by all the white belts. Boom, cortisol. Stress hormones. You get pumped with stress hormones nonstop. Where do you get that dopamine? You get the endorphins. They're great. Some classes, who knows, man? Some classes you may come, you may not get the endorphins. It may be a different type of class, right? Sometimes you come by, it's going to be a lot of endorphins. It's going to be great. But you're out of shape because maybe now you're thinking differently. Maybe it's cortisol. So what it really comes down to is this: your mindset. It's how you think about jiu-jitsu. I'm pulling into the academy now. I took the long route so I could tell you guys this story. But it's very important that you guys understand to change your mind. It's very, very important to change your mind. You have to understand these chemicals. You have to understand the chemicals of the brain, and you have to understand how to use them in your favor. When you get tapped out as a white belt, you get hit with dopamine because you're not hit with cortisol, usually. You hit with dopamine because you're inspired, you're amazed. You're like, man, I want to learn that. Oh man, let me go again. Can I catch him again? Can I catch him again? You're holding less expectations for yourself. So it's easier for you to achieve your goals. And then what happens, you start getting a little better and somebody beats you and cortisol. Now, if you're a new student and you hate losing and you're hard on yourself, you're going to get hit with cortisol more. Everybody reacts a little different. When I was hit with cortisol, I was hit with dopamine. I hate losing, but I immediately was like, I'm coming back because I need to keep going. So my dopamine overfilled my cortisol levels, like by a long shot, because I'm competitive. Well, not everybody's the same. Everybody reacts different. Now, as I start training on, I hit the blue belt every single belt level, sometimes multiple times throughout my years at a certain belt. Why? And it's just you got to change your mindset, man. The way that I used to attract dopamine when I was a white belt and a blue belt and even purple is different than I am now as a brown belt. When I was a blue belt and a purple belt, especially purple, when I was a blue belt, my dopamine was coming in because I was still fairly new and things were like new for me, and I was competing and I was just really excited to compete. So I was just very big on that. I was like, I want to compete. I want to do better in competition. I want to do better in competition. At purple belt, I won almost every purple belt competition. I won almost every one. And I was really excited about that. So every time I sign up for a tournament, I'm like, what highlight reel am I going to make now? What clips am I going to get now? I can't wait to watch my competition matches. That was my dopamine hell. So I was training for competition. At brown belt, it's not my aspirations. I don't care about competitions. I encourage people to compete. I'll still step up onto the stage and compete a little bit, but that's not what I care about. To me, it's nothing. I'm 30 years old. I'm getting a little older. I got some other goals in my life that I want to achieve. But I hit my dopamine levels I get my dopamine through my students. That's where I hit my dopamine. And that's where, man, that's where it needs to start shifting. When you're a blue belt and you're a purple belt, you got to start shifting your mindset on how you're going to achieve your dopamine. When you're a blue belt and you're a little older, you're a little out of shape, you're not as athletic, and you see that wrestler come in who's a 2-stripe white belt, 3-stripe white belt, dude's competing a lot and he's beating you, go back to your white belt mindset. Don't try to win. Just go back and try to survive. That's a win for you. But who cares about the belt? The belt's 2 inches, 1.5 inches, whatever. It's small. It means nothing. I can put a white belt around my body. I can put a red belt around my body. My skill is not going to change. So it's important that we control our mindset while we're training. When I see, some students. There's a student, one of my students called Young. His name's Young. He goes and competes. When he does well in competitions, I get hit with dopamine because I helped him win that competition. I'm like, yes, dude. I'm like, yes, he won the competition. That's what I'm talking about. When I do private lessons with people, I do private lessons with a bunch of people. One of them right now, Nathan. I'm showing Nathan the hit fold passes. When Nathan hits a hit fold pass, boom, I'm hit with dopamine. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. I'm ready. I'm ready to go train. I'm ready to teach him more. I'm like, yes, man. I want to get back in the gym, and I want him to be back in the gym. Then I get hit with cortisol when those students quit. Part of the game. But I find another student. I start getting hit with some more dopamine, and you keep yourself going. But you got to be aware. You got to be aware, and you got to change your mindset. You got to understand when you're taking in cortisol. You got to understand when you're taking in dopamine. I get a big hit of these things when my students do well. If I was focused so much on if I had my mindset when I was a blue belt, where I'm at now, when I first started, I don't know, I'd probably quit because I'd be wanting to compete so much. And I wouldn't be winning as often, or I wouldn't be. I'd be like when I was a blue belt, I get excited if I armbarred somebody. I don't get excited if I armbar somebody now. I don't even care about it. You know what I get excited for? When I can sit in an armbar, a fully extended armbar, and you can't tap me. That's where I get hit with dopamine. I'm like, what up? And I'm playing, and you're trying, and I'm toying around, and you're laughing, and I'm laughing, we're having fun. Dopamine. Endorphins too. No cortisol. And then you tap me, oh man, you got me, good job. I still have dopamine. Why am I not getting hit with cortisol when I get tapped out? It's because I don't care. I don't care. I've been training for so long. When I was a purple belt, I tapped out a black belt for the first time. I was really excited. I tapped this guy with a bow and arrow. I was expecting confetti to freaking fall from the ceiling. I was expecting everybody to be like, oh my God. I was expecting a brown belt to be wrapped around my, I was expecting so many things. You know what the black belt did? I tapped him with a bow and arrow. I looked at him. I wanted to see his facial expression. He looked at me and was just like this. Good job. And that was it. That was it. He just said, good job. Slapped my hands, bumped my fist. We kept rolling. He didn't go harder. He didn't try to kill me. We just rolled. I was so confused. It meant nothing to me, tapping him. And I was like, man. And then I started thinking, I was like, it probably meant nothing to him as well. He's a black belt. He's probably been tapped so many times that he is not getting hit with cortisol right now. Me tapping him, dude, doesn't care. Not even gonna bother him. So since that point is when I adapted my mind. I don't care if I get tapped by lower belts. I don't care if I get tapped by higher belts. I don't care. Because I don't want cortisol. That's not what I want, man. I want to train until I'm 90 years old, and I'm not going to be able to live to 90 if I'm filled with cortisol. Fill your mind with endorphins. Be happy. Get that dopamine effect. Hey, we keep coming to class. Be happy. Change your mindset. Why do people quit? The thing is, look, it's the last thing I'm going to say. I'm going to get out of here, okay? If you guys watch the full video, I appreciate it, but this is the last thing. Most people, statistically shown, most people encounter some form of life event every 7 years. Every 7 years, you experience some form of life event. Whether it's right now, COVID, whether it's a divorce, a marriage, you losing a job, a big move, whatever. About every 7 years, somebody experiences a life event. If you hit a life event at the peak of your cortisol level, when your cortisol is skyrocketing, if you hit a life event when you're at the blue belt blues, and again, blue belt blues could be any belt level. If you hit the blue belt blues during your life event, it's more likely that you are going to quit. unless you use what I showed you today. Change your mindset. It's important. It's important. Every 7 years, somebody quits. That 7 years, that doesn't mean 7 years into training. That 7 years could be the first 6 months. That 7 years could be the first 3 years of your training. You can hit that 7 years. You know what I mean? That event, that life event, you can hit that life event your first year of training. If you hit that life event at your 3-stripe white belt, your 4-stripe white belt, guess what? You might continue training. You may push through that. Why? Because of the motivation to get your blue belt. If you hit that life event right when you get your blue belt, you're gonna look how far it takes to get to the purple. You're gonna be negative because you're hit with all this cortisol. You are more likely to quit. You're more likely to quit. Once you get to purple, less people start quitting. Why? Why do less people start quitting at purple belt? You've gone a long time. You can't quit now. You're already in pain. You're already hurt. You might as well get a reward from it. Eric Thomas, right? You're already going. Just keep going. But the big thing is this, is at purple belt is when you really learn how to have fun with jiu-jitsu. You've been through enough ups and downs where your mind begins to start shifting. You start thinking differently. You start analyzing things differently. You start understanding these chemicals, how you can get them, how you can't get them. You change your mind at purple belt. You do not change your mind at blue belt. You have not trained enough to train your mind at blue belt. You have not been through enough ups and downs. If you get all the way to black belt and you have no ups and downs, you're out of your mind. You didn't get your black belt. It's impossible. You have got to go through some ups and downs. Everybody has experienced a time where they've second guessed whether they wanted to keep doing this or not. Everybody has. When you get into a certain level, when you've gotten to the brown belt, the black belt, there's been a time where you've second guessed it, guys. Endorphins, dopamine, cortisol. Remember those three. Remember those three. Cortisol, we don't want the cortisol, it's a stress hormone. Every class, we need to have a workout. That's endorphins. Look, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling upset, you're feeling depressed, go work out. Endorphins, boom. Get hit with endorphins. Dopamine. Change your mindset. Stop trying to win all the time. If you're not winning, stop winning. Little victories build back up, all right? Little victories build back up, but understand when you're hitting cortisol and understand when you're hitting dopamine. If you guys watch this full video, comment down below. Thank you so much.